We live in an era where everyone is looking for an easy side hustle, a quick way to make money from the comfort of their own sofa. But nobody ever tells you about the digital contracts that can cost you the rest of your natural life. My name is Andre, and until recently, I was just an ordinary, broke freelance accountant struggling with a massive mortgage. A year ago, I accepted a simple, high-paying remote position as a digital compliance agent for an international logistics firm. My only job was to review spreadsheets and click a single green button to approve corporate invoices. It took 5 seconds of my time. I thought I was being smart. I didn't know that with every single click, I was hard-coding my own digital signature into a multi-million-dollar systemic fraud, and that a federal task force was already calculating my cumulative sentence. 70 years in a maximum security facility without the possibility of parole. The desperation of debt changes your perception of risk. When you owe the banks more money than you can earn in a decade, a clean, professional email offering $3,000 a month for 10 hours of weekly work looks like a life jacket. The company called itself Vanguard Transit Solutions. They had a beautiful website, a responsive human resources manager, and a digital contract that looked completely standard. They explained that they needed a local representative to authorize customs declarations for electronic shipments passing through the state port. It felt completely administrative, boring, and safe. I sat in my small apartment drinking coffee and systematically went through the digital queues, clicking verify and approve on hundreds of files every week. The money arrived in my account exactly on time, every single month. My debts were disappearing, and for the first time in years, I felt like I could breathe. But the illusion of safety began to crack during the 10th month. I was reviewing a routine batch of shipping manifests when I noticed a strange, recurring digital watermark embedded in the background of the PDF files. It wasn't a corporate logo, it was a microscopic, jagged sequence of numbers, 70-Y-max. When I tried to zoom in, the compliance software automatically crashed, locking my screen for several minutes. A strange, cold sensation crawled up my spine. That evening, as I stood by the kitchen window, I noticed a dark, unmarked sedan parked across the street from my building. The engine was idling silently in the dark, and the headlights were turned off. I told myself I was just being paranoid, that it was just a random neighbor or a delivery driver. But deep down, in the silent spaces of my mind, an alarm had started to sound. The easy fortune was beginning to feel heavy, and the walls of my comfortable apartment suddenly felt a little tighter. By the 11th month, my routine had transformed into a slow-burning psychological torture. I decided to quit. I opened the secure corporate chat to inform my supervisor, but the interface was gone. In its place was a blank screen with a cold, automated notification. Account restricted, technical evaluation in progress. I tried to access the company's main website, but my browser displayed a severe security warning. The domain no longer existed. Panic, sharp and suffocating, flooded my chest. I opened my personal computer and began to look through the offline copies of the files I had processed over the year. I started running the numbers, looking past the cover sheets and deep into the underlying financial data. What I discovered broke my sanity. The shipments weren't electronics. The invoices were dummy documents designed to mask a massive, industrial-scale international money laundering network. Every time I had clicked that green approve button, I wasn't just verifying a delivery, I was legally certifying the legitimacy of illegal capital. And because the company had used my personal residential IP address and my real digital signature as the primary authorization point, on paper, I wasn't an employee. I was the creator of the entire network. Under federal law, each fraudulent transaction carried a mandatory statutory penalty of 6 months to 5 years. I had processed over 1,400 transactions. The mathematical logic was brutal, clean, and terrifying. If the authorities looked at my trail, the cumulative charges wouldn't just ruin my life, They added up to a maximum sentence of 70 years. I was a ghost walking among the living, waiting for the trap to snap shut. Isolation becomes an absolute prison long before the iron doors actually close. I stopped leaving my apartment entirely. I called in sick to my few remaining local freelance clients, blocked my friends' numbers, and ignored the frantic text messages from my family. My life shrank to the size of my dark living room. The dark sedan was still outside, parked in the exact same spot every night. Its silent presence a constant, heavy weight outside my window. I became obsessed with security. I spent hours checking the locks on my front door, reinforcing the frame with long steel screws, and hiding my hard drives inside the vents. I felt like a rat trapped in a maze, waiting for the laboratory door to open. To cope with the suffocating terror, I broke my years of complete sobriety. I bought a bottle of strong, cheap vodka from the delivery service, hoping the burning fluid would numb the logical calculations running through my brain. But the alcohol didn't bring peace. It only magnified the paranoia. The silence of the night became an enemy. Every creak of the old building, every footstep in the hallway outside felt like the beginning of the end. I would sit on the floor in the dark, clutch the bottle, and look at the reflection of the computer screen in the window glass. I realized that Vanguard Transit Solutions hadn't just used my technical skills, they had targeted my financial vulnerability. They needed a desperate, compliant fall guy who wouldn't ask questions until it was too late. I had traded my entire future, my freedom, and my sanity for a few months of debt-free comfort, and now the bill was due. The final confrontation occurred on a freezing Tuesday night, exactly 1 year after I had signed that fatal remote contract. It was 3 a.m., the hour when the mind is at its weakest. I was sitting on the kitchen floor, my eyes bloodshot, my body shivering from sleep deprivation and the toxic fog of cheap alcohol. The silence was suddenly shattered by a violent, earth-shattering explosion at my front door. Boom. The steel-reinforced frame didn't just bend, it splintered into 1,000 pieces under the impact of a hydraulic ram. Heavy, synchronized tactical boots hit the parquet floor, moving with terrifying speed and absolute precision. Flashbangs detonated in the hallway, filling my reality with a blinding white-hot light and a deafening roar that stole my senses. Massive silhouettes in heavy tactical gear, helmets and body armor swarmed my kitchen, their automatic weapons pointed directly at my chest. I didn't even have time to scream. I was thrown onto the cold floor, my face pressed into the dust, while heavy knees pinned my spine down. Hands rudely pulled my arms behind my back, and the cold, metallic click of handcuffs snapped around my wrists. A loud, booming voice echoed through the chaos, reading from a document. Andre, you are under arrest for conspiracy to commit grand-scale financial fraud, wire fraud, and systemic money laundering against the state. You have the right to remain silent. As they dragged me out into the freezing night past the dark sedan, I didn't feel terror anymore. I felt a strange, twisted sense of relief. The waiting was finally over. The true psychological horror of my story didn't reveal itself until the federal interrogation rooms. As I sat across from the lead investigators, stripped of my shoelaces and my dignity, the puzzle was finally put together. There was no shadow syndicate hunting me down to silence me. The dark sedan across the street wasn't a team of criminal assassins waiting to clean up the evidence. It was an unmarked federal surveillance vehicle. The task force had been monitoring my apartment for 3 months, building an airtight case, tracking my digital signatures, and waiting to see if I would attempt to flee the country or contact the higher-ups. The corporate masterminds behind Vanguard Transit Solutions had disappeared into the dark web months ago, leaving a flawless paper trail that pointed entirely to one person: me. In the eyes of the law, I wasn't a victim. I was the perfect self-contained corporate scapegoat. My meticulous record-keeping and my real digital authorization on every file sealed my fate. Today, I sit in a small gray cell, looking at my reflection in the polished stainless steel mirror on the wall. My trial is next month, and my attorney has already told me that a plea deal is impossible because of the sheer scale of the damage. I am looking at a realistic sentence of 70 years. I wanted a quick escape from my debts, a simple shortcut to a comfortable life. I got exactly what I signed up for. If you ever find a remote job that feels too easy, that asks no questions and pays too well, run. Because some contracts don't just take your time, they take your entire life, leaving you with nothing but decades of silence to count your mistakes.